Hey, everybody, welcome to Everyday Fi, where we explore the lives of everyday people pursuing financial independence. I'm your host, Meghan Combs, and I'm here to say that you do not need a $1 million book deal or a famous blog to reach Fi early. By talking with real humans, I will show you how to forge your own path to financial freedom the everyday way. Today, I am back with my co-host Mitch, and we're talking about burnout. It's gonna be so fun. What it is, what it feels like, who suffers from it, our own personal experiences with it, and how we have dealt with it or are currently dealing with it. We'll explore all this and more after a word from our sponsors. And we're back. Hey, Mitch, how you doing this Saturday? What have you been up to?
I'm good. I'm recovered. I'm rested. I'm not burned out. And
You're on the other side.
yeah, I'm excited. It's a tough subject to need to talk about, but as someone who's experienced it, I'm happy to, I guess, give a glimpse into what my experience was to maybe give somebody a perspective that may help them. So if this helps someone, then great. And I think all of your episodes have a chance to help someone, but this one in particular, I feel like kind of hits home and can really pay dividends. So hopefully it helps someone out there. How about you?
Yeah. Well, and I think that your situation will help people see that their burnout is not forever. And so that's nice because right now I am personally in burnout and I feel like there's no way I'm going to be able to do this for it feels like I can't even do it for a month, let alone 5, 7 years, so it's going to be really hard. But for how I'm doing today, pretty good, actually. I was telling you before we recorded that I had a stress dream and it was terrible. And I woke up like super painful in my neck and shoulders and was going to go to the gym anyway. And I thought about skipping because I was like, I'm in a lot of pain. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. And I was very lucky because I was the only one there. And I felt a little bad for the coach because that kind of sucks when only one person shows up to your class. But I got a kind of a one-on-one coaching a little bit. He did the workout with me, but he also was coaching me. And it's 45 minutes of solid strength. And he's a very good coach and the pain's gone. It's completely gone. And that is just the power of exercise right there, guys. Like, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor or anything, but literally every time I work out, I feel better. And the only time I feel pain is like the muscle pain or if I like hurt myself. I've definitely done that when I exercise, but I mean, the anxiety pain, that goes away. And it's just exercise is so awesome. So, yeah, I don't know if you've felt that way, Mitch. I know you're a pretty fit guy, so I don't know if that helps you too.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting to bring it up. Like, you don't have to be a doctor to understand that, at least anecdotally for you, it works. But I think we kind of know that that's the science, right? We release the endorphins. Movement is better than being stagnant. And even as simple as getting up off the couch and going for a walk, or from our desk and going for a walk, or standing at our desk for part of the day can make a tremendous difference in how we feel. And I think I said this when we were chatting before we recorded, but it's literally unfair to wake up and feel like stress and anxiety from whatever it was that you were dreaming. I truly just think unfair is the only like correct adjective. And I've been there. And there's a difference between I woke up and I had a kink in my neck. Unfortunate, slept just wrong. I'm almost 40. This sucks, right? That's one thing. But to wake up and either not know what you were dreaming or to know exactly what you're dreaming and just know, why does it feel like I just worked 10 hours instead of feeling like I just slept for 8 hours? Didn't wake up, wasn't tossing and turning. This is unfair. And I don't know exactly what you're feeling, but like that neck tension, the shoulder blades feel tight, and just the chest wants to exhale and breathe deep, and you just almost feel like you can't. Nobody should wake up that way. And I've got some practical stuff that I worked on to avoid that myself. And as bummed as I am that you're dealing with it, I'm glad we get a chance to talk about it. So, yeah.
Okay, wait a second. We can't move on from that. What are your practical tips? You got to give them to me.
So a couple things, and it's probably deeper into the episode, has more to talk about this, but there's things that we can do all day throughout the day to set ourselves up for better sleep. A lot of it has to do with breath work, with actual meditation, with or without the use of an app. And for anyone that says they can't meditate, you can. You just can't probably for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes without practice. You build to it. And then having some boundaries between the end of our workday and the beginning of our home life, whether you're going home and being husband, dad, spouse, wife, whatever it may be. There's some boundaries between when we get home, having a little reset, what we do after dinner, what we consume after dinner, what we don't consume after dinner, and just having a regular bedtime ritual. And then there's a couple of things that I never tested, but I understand to be helpful is like a weighted blanket can make a big difference. And then a grounding sheet, if you've heard of these, they like literally plug into the wall and they have like grounding. I don't know what the word is, but they ground you somehow. And the last one is for work from homers, especially. And in the wintertime, happy lamps, if you're familiar with them, like that provide vitamin D via sunlight. So those are a few really quick hit ones, if any of those stand out to you.
Yeah, cool. And yeah, we can definitely get into those more deeply as we go through the episode. And it's one of those things where, like, I'm not going to push back on any of that, but I am going to say sometimes there's so many things that people say you need to do to feel less stressed that you get stressed about all the things you need to do to feel less stressed. So it's like a vicious circle or cycle or whatever that phrase is. So I will say, like, we'll give you a bunch of them, but pick two, maybe three. You don't have to do all of them because that would stress me out even more. I'd be like, okay, I got to do this and I got to do this and I got to do this. But yeah, let's dive into a little bit about the definition of burnout. We were looking at it before the show. And again, we're not like researchers. This is just us Googling stuff. So this is what Google AI told me. So if anybody disagrees, just confront Google AI. So how many people suffer from burnout? So there's a big range because it's based on survey data. And there's also like, are people suffering from it every single day? Are people suffering from it sometimes? Are people suffering from it every once in a while? There's a bunch of different numbers, but there's still the number that jumped out to me, and this is anybody experiencing burnout at any point in time. It's up to 82% of the population, and that's quite a lot of people. And I'm floored by the fact that it's that many people. It does make me wonder, like, did our parents suffer from this? Because I don't know if burnout is a newer term, but I can say that I don't think I've ever heard my mom talk about burnout as a concept. Sure, being stressed as a single parent who was a CFO, but I don't know if they ever really communicated it the same way. And I will say I have some opinions about why that might be, and we can get to that in a minute. But I also want to talk about what burnout feels like. And this is what the internet says, and then everybody's different. But fatigue, headache, muscle pain, stomach problems, and just overall health issues like you can't sleep or you have anxiety, dreams, etc. It is also the type of thing that is not relieved through rest or taking breaks. Being worn out might be. So, like, worn out is, say you went running on the beach in the sun and you're like exhausted and you're able to rest, take a nap, or just rest on the couch, and then you're recovered. Burnout's not like that. It's much more long lasting, and it's very hard to get through it without removing the thing that is burning you out. Because even if you do take a break from it, say it's your job, if you take 2 weeks off, you're just going to come back to that job that's giving you burnout, and it's just going to come right back. So it's long term. And also it seems like it teeters on the edge of depression when you read some of these types of things, because there's also like you lose a sense of purpose and you feel like you don't really know your worth and things like that. And that definitely teeters on depression. So Mitch, did you want to add anything to any of that?
I think you hit all the major talking points. I just go back to what you'd mentioned about like you never heard your mom talk about burnout, maybe stress, maybe whatever. And I think maybe we saw it play out. Like I think our parents, maybe at least in my household, my aunts, my uncles, I think maybe instead of them naming it because they just didn't have a name for it, like at one point in life, the word teenager wasn't a word. Like it didn't exist. There were just these people that were this age and they never were called anything. And then we called them teenagers once we learned how to name it. And I think we maybe just didn't quite have a name for this yet. And maybe we were doing things that helped solve it. And I think the way it showed up, at least in my world, was I just want to lay down and rest. My head's pounding. I think I just need a break. I think I need to reset. I've been running, 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 going, 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 taking you here, dropping you there, picking you up from this, attending that. My boss was a jerk this week. I think I just need a nice weekend. And we just kind of saw it. Maybe they took the actions it took to solve and never named it. And I will say, I wish we had the data to know back then. How does it compare? I'd want to bet that there was less burnout because there's so much less distraction in countless different ways between advertisements and phones and media and always being on and social media and all that stuff that drives it. So that's just a couple of thoughts I have that we can continue the conversation forward and maybe go deeper into some of these as we move along.
Yeah, and let's start with that. Why did it seem like our parents didn't maybe suffer from this, and maybe even our grandparents too? I will say I don't know if I ever remember my grandparents working. I think they retired either right around the time I was born or right around the time where I didn't understand what working was, like, so I don't know how they felt, but in that generation, so my grandparents were born in the 1920s. They both have passed away, and they were in their 90s when they passed away. My grandmother never worked, right? So she was a stay-at-home mom or a homemaker, as they used to call them. And I do wonder if that helped burnout on my grandfather's side because she was handling everything at home. He handled everything at work, and they had their separate areas of what they needed to do. And there, like you said, there's no social media. Like, you're not bombarded with all of this information. Sure, you had like newspapers and even the news, but I don't think it's the same as like being glued to your phone 24/7 and like getting hit after hit after hit after hit. And so I think that that was part of it, but definitely having that support system at home when you're at work. And so you don't have to come home and then do all of these other things. For instance, we just found out that a tree in our front yard needs to come down because it's rotten on the inside. It's a 120-foot tree that could come right down on our house too. So like, it's scary. And that is part of my stress. And like, out of my grandmother and my grandfather who would have dealt with that, one of them probably would. But now it's because we're partners, me and my husband, it's both of us. And I'm not saying like I want us to split like that again, but I do wonder if like we're handling this as a collective, but because we're handling it as a collective household, we're thinking about everything together. And so it's a lot. And there's a lot. So I don't know if you have any opinions about that.
Yeah, it's a great observation. I was thinking the same thing. Single income household, and you could own a house, a reasonable car, keep food on the table, and just live your life. So you didn't have to have two incomes to feel like you were getting ahead. That's a very different world, right? You didn't have to think about how are you going to handle childcare because one of you was staying home, right? Like, when you don't have that mental burden of how am I going to keep a roof over my head? How am I going to keep food on the table? How am I going to have the family and not have to wonder if it makes sense to have one kid versus two versus three? I mean, heck, maybe they had more kids because they're trying to get them to help out on the farm or whatever. 5 kids, whatever. That's a big number. So, like, I think there's certainly something to that. And there is just no hiding. Like, I've been really hooked on this book called The Anxious Generation, and it's about our youth and their addictions to phones, and how you can absolutely pinpoint that when the smartphone came along and we got it into the hands of kids that are too young, the dramatic impact that it has had on that generation. And so if it happens with kids, right, we know it still is going to have an impact on us, hopefully less so as adults. But yeah, we're constantly tugged in every direction. We can see and try and keep up with the Joneses through what we see in our neighborhoods. Sure, they could see that back then, but people lived more simply back then. House, car, food, a couple vacations a year, and everything was good, right? The only time you saw the Joneses is if you drove way out of town to wherever the mansions were, or maybe saw something on TV. I don't know, but you weren't constantly exposed to it. And so you weren't constantly thinking about if you could get there or why you should get there. The middle class or whatever it was just more consistent, maybe. And there may have been a wider gap between the richest of the rich and what the middle class meant back then. But when you don't have to worry about food security or shelter security or how you're going to deal with childcare because somebody was sick or the daycare was closed that day, like, that's just a different world to operate in. And maybe that's why. And get your tree taken down. I had a tree split while we were gone. And I think it's going to survive. We're gambling. We're going to keep it up because we planted it and I want it to stay. By the way, it stinks. Not only do you have to lose the tree, which is probably pretty, you lose the shade, which helps keep your house cool, and you got to pay money to do it. Like, what a kick to the shins. Real unfortunate. Real unfortunate.
I mean, we're gonna get another quote, but it was $6,000 what they quote us because they have to come in with a crane.
Oh,
Yeah, because it's so tall and it's probably 20 feet from the house, and then it's right next to the power lines, so it's a very hard tree to remove. And anyway, I don't want to go down that road. We just found out about it. So we are going to get other quotes. My mom was like, that seems really high. And we're also going to ask our city because it is next to the power lines. So they might take it down for us because it is an at-risk tree that would basically take down all of those power lines and a house. Like, so anyway, yeah. And back to what you were saying about that generation, I do want to preface this, like, I'm not telling everybody that we want to go back to the 1950s. No, the 1950s were not the golden age. There was still segregation and the civil rights movement hadn't happened yet and like all of that. And women couldn't have credit cards or loans in their own names. So like all that was not great. And women deserved to have careers. But it's more pointing out that when you have the kind of changes and the technological changes that we've had, there are really good things that come along with that and then really not great things. Like our brain is not meant to take in this amount of information. That's not what we were built for. And I think it's leading to that higher level of burnout, even for like kids who are just in school. I feel like they're probably feeling it too. So, and then I definitely think my mom's generation, so the boomers and the Xers, all definitely felt burnout because that's when like the kind of boom of working where women went to work like in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then they were having to deal with like less pay and then working in a man's world. And so that that person who was supposed to stay home with the kids is now also working and then working in a very stressful environment. And so that just starts to culminate that burnout, and then technology is coming and you have to learn all this new stuff and it's just culminating. So yeah, and I'll let you comment on that one too, that generation.
yeah. I mean, it all compounded, right? Like, as we got into the generation of like the Xers, you started getting cable TV, 24-hour news cycle on C-SPAN. Like, all these things started to develop that we never had before. Everything's trying to be sensationalized to capture your attention. And we move right into the internet boom of the late 90s and AOL instant messaging and chat rooms and things like that. Like, just immediately our attention has been more and more and more captured. And so to maybe make it practical and start to take those steps forward, like, I think it's really powerful to just have like defined roles within your household of who does what and when. Like, never does Liz have to wonder who's going to cut the grass at her house. We know Mitch cuts grass. My only responsibility to make sure anything to do with food or face wash or toothpaste comes into this house, I have the Target app. I go into said Target app. I put the item in there, but she places the orders, goes and picks up said orders, brings them home, and they land where they need to go, right? So it's just taking away the decision-making fatigue and like the mental energy that it takes to think through these types of things. If we just know, I take out garbage, you make the food, I do this, you do that, like, it makes it so much easier because it's one less thing to think about. And I actually think you just gave a great example of this. I can't remember if it was you and I talking about it or if I heard it on one of your shows. It's all runs together in my mind. But you're talking about how you just kind of let Chris take over. You said, Chris, you go deal with selling your house. That's your house. It's your thing. I can't be involved. I need to step back. So rather than, are you calling the realtor or am I calling the realtor? Should I talk to the mortgage gal or should you call the mortgage gal? Do you think we should negotiate this or do you think we should negotiate that? If you just let the role be defined, you walked away and all of a sudden it was one less thing you had to worry about and it was fine. And I think the same thing goes with the everyday things that we do in our lives. We should just make sure that we know who does what and by when. And if something changes, of course, let's talk about it. Or if something's needed, who's going to handle that? How are we going to handle that to make it all work? Because knowing what to do and when to do it, having an idea of what the future is that's coming, just takes away that wonder or curiosity. How are we going to deal with this or that? Well, Mitch has gone on this work trip. It's like, well, Mitch has gone on the work trip. You knew when the trip was coming a month in advance, so you planned for it, versus, oh, hey, by the way, I got to rip out of town for 4 days for work. You're on your own. It's like, oh, well, what am I going to do this week, right? Like, just having good communication, kind of knowing what's coming down the pipe makes it a lot easier. And some of that was maybe a little tangential, but hopefully it was helpful. And I'm curious how you'd respond to any of it.
Okay, so there's this really interesting book and game by Eve Rodsky called Fair Play, and it is supposed to basically help households divvy up each thing. And so the Fair Play game is, we haven't played it yet. We bought it. Actually, Chris bought it. And it is a way to like, okay, here's the garbage card. That's yours. You own that. Here's the dishes card. That's mine. I own that. And then there are cards that you can share. And it's like a really cool game. And it comes with a book. And so if somebody's like, well, I don't know how to do this, they made a whole book and game for it. So I'll link in the show notes to where you guys can look up the book and the game. And I wish I had played it because then I could give you like, but that's the thing is we have not had time. We haven't even had time to like combine our freaking checking account. Like that's like, it's so bad. There's so much to do. But I do think it will help us, and I think it will be a very good thing to do before any babies come. I definitely think we're going to need to do it before then. And I think it's definitely going to help you divvy up your household in a very fair way. That's why it's called fair play, because then you're not arguing about it. Like there's some sort of method that they use. So anyway, that's what came up for me for what you said.
That's brilliant. It's brilliant. And one other example I'll give is like cleaning the house. I gave a bunch of random things that we do around our house, but they're how they play out. Like my deal is bathrooms. Liz knows every Sunday morning, bathrooms are getting perfectly cleaned head to toe. Hers is way harder to clean than mine, by the way. Dry shampoo is a hot mess to clean up. But we know every Sunday the resets happen in both our bathrooms. All three will look like new. And I never have to wonder if our floors are going to get swept and wood floors swept and mopped. Like that's her gig. The only thing that there is no definitive who does it is the dishes. Actually, it's like some days if after dinner I have nothing to go take care of, I will wash the dishes, whatever, put them in the dishwasher. I don't ever put them away though. Like almost never do I put them away. That's a her thing. It's actually her least favorite thing to do, interestingly enough. But
it's my least favorite thing to do. But then I also hate not having the dishes. So,
yeah.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
If we could all just have like housekeepers, that'd be great. Okay, so let's move on to like how we are experiencing burnout in our lives or have experienced it in the past. So let's start with you. Well, no, hold on. Actually, let's start with me because you're like the light at the end of the tunnel for the people who are in burnout. So let's end with you, actually. Not end the show, but like end this segment. Okay, so right now I'm suffering from burnout. Probably people who've listened to the show, like you've heard some of the stuff, but I will just go into it. The big one right now is my job. And the main reason is that I'm a product manager in software. And if you don't know what that means, that's totally fine because they're the two most generic words in the English language for a job, product and manager. And I actually explained what this is on the ChooseFI episode I was on. I can link that in the show notes, but it's basically just not a sustainable job to do because you have so many different things that you have to care about. And on the product that I'm on, it's more like a program rather than just a product. And yet there's one person in charge, me. And they actually put me on this team with another product manager to help him out because he was drowning. And then he quit. And now it's just me. And so, and I will say, I also don't have the same level of experience as the other product managers here. Like I've only been doing this around 5 to 6 years. The others have been doing it 10 plus years. And so I'm kind of learning as I go. And then there's also this threat over my head of like being afraid of getting fired. And I will say the reason why is because I have noticed, now this is on the engineering side, not on the product side of our org, so I'll just qualify that, but a lot of people will come in who are new, and if they don't perform right away, like within the first 3 months, they're out. They're fired. And the company does not care that they have to go and like hire somebody else. They will just let you go. And that is terrifying, especially being the person who is the breadwinner, of having that threat of like, if I mess up, I'm going to be fired. And maybe I need to talk to my bosses about that feeling because like that's not conducive to like a very happy workplace. But I mean, sometimes I wonder if they even care. Like, do they care about me being happy? No, they care about me being productive and making money for the company. So like, I don't know, maybe I'm being too capitalist like minded that way, but That's where mine is coming from, and I'm even getting, like, you can hear my breath, I'm breathing faster, my eyes are actually watering, like, even just thinking about it, it's, like, it's so stressful, and I have, like, 3 pages in my notebook of, like, to-dos that I need to do that I'm, like, thinking about at night, and, like, it's causing stress dreams, and it's insane. So that's, like, the number one thing, and then, of course, we've got the fertility stuff. Luckily, that's on pause right now because 'cause we're in a waiting stage. So that's not too stressful. And I am going to like this group therapy for it, which is really cool with like 9 other women, which is actually really helping. We've got the house stuff, like the tree that could come on our house. That's a new one. I just got a DEXA body comp scan and I'm 40% fat, which is like, what? Because I don't look it. And I got 2 of them because I wanted to confirm that it's true. And it is true. And so that just like blew me out of the water because I've never had to deal with that before. And so now I have to get really intentional about my health because that's too high of a percentage of fat, right? So and then there is like making sure my relationship is good, making sure my relationships with my friends are good. It's so many things. And the reception, the wedding reception that's coming in 2 months. The dream I had last night, that was the anxiety dream, was that it all went wrong and nobody wanted to help me. And it was horrible. And I woke up at like 5:30, like totally shrugged in bed, like tense, like, oh no, it's all wrong. And then I was like, oh, it was a dream. Okay. And then I couldn't go back to sleep. So that's like my burnout right now. And like, I'm literally getting flush in the face and hot talking about it. That's how bad it is. And it is constant every day. Every day. It does not let up. And I don't know what to do, like, because I can't quit my job. Like, I know some people will be like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. But going to another product manager position is just going to be the same thing. Like, that's just how software and product management works. Like, I'd have to change careers again. And that's really hard to do when you're wanting to have a child that's going to cost money. If you have an old house like mine that costs money to maintain, like, you can't just take long breaks to change careers and then start at the bottom at that other career at like a low salary. It's harder to do when you're, I think, at my age and in my income bracket right now. Like, I make 152,000 right now. And so if I were to not make that and then go to another job where, say, I'm making like 40, 50, 60,000, like, that's a huge cut. That's a third of what I make, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So anyway.
Well, I'm going to try and rewind this as best I can. So let's start with, I watched the engineers come in, not perform, get fired. Pretty black and white. I don't know exactly what engineers do, but I know that the people that are in charge of making sure that the keys get typed and the code spits out and that I get what I want.
That's them.
That's them,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
that's them.
So
yes.
that's
the programmers, the developers, we call them engineers.
Yeah. Okay. So those are like hard skills, right? Those are just, they're black and white. It's pass or fail. There might be like, you could be a B+ engineer because you're slower than an A+ engineer, but the result ends up the same. Where what you're executing is a combination of hard skills and soft skills. So it's not so black and white with you. You're not super easy to fire. Frankly, you know too much about the product. And if they don't have somebody waiting in the wings who knows as much as you know about the project, the chances that they can slide right in and keep you all on track is wildly unlikely. So I would think about that realistically is, what would you say to a friend? That'll probably resonate to you. What would you say to a friend who told you that same story? You might ask them to look at it a little more holistically and go, well, wait a minute. How easy am I to replace? There were 2 people, me and someone else. That other person left. Now there's just me. And I'm holding it all together, probably a little too much. My cup is probably overflowing, but I'm doing it. So really, are they in a position to fire me? Probably not. So why are they firing those engineers? Black and white, very simple, pass or fail. Your job is not so black and white. It's not so pass or fail. There's a ton of soft skills that you have to have. There's organizational skills you have to have. There's structural know-how that you have to have. You have to know enough to ask the right questions to challenge the person typing the code. Like, you don't need to know how to type the code, but you need to know that there's a way that maybe we could escalate this. So there's a lot there. So I can't tell you to just don't worry about it anymore, but I would think about it that way. and then you hit the nail on the head and you saw me pointing at the screen when you said it, you may need to talk to your bosses a little bit. And it sounds to me like you have some good bosses. I know you have one official boss, but like you've mentioned before that
There's like three. So I have like my boss, and then my boss's boss, and then my boss's boss's boss. And all three of them give me feedback. Now, they're not all three my boss, but they kind of are, right?
yeah,
Because like if my boss's boss's boss wants to fire me, he can fire me,
right.
right? So it is kind of like I have three different bosses, which is also adding to like the, oh, God.
Yeah. Here's what I would do if I was in your shoes. Okay. So I was at one point worried about getting fired, but it was not the source of my frustration with my job, my burnout on my job, what led me to sell my equity and leave the company. That wasn't the reason, but in the back of my head, that was there. And when I asked my therapist about it, was explaining the situation of like, I'm worried I might get fired because of all these things going on. I will never forget. She looked at me and she goes, has anyone ever said any of those things to you? And I was like, well, no. And she's like, so where do you think those came from? And I'm like, between these two ears. And she goes, what would you tell somebody else in your situation? And I went, probably to wind it back and think through all that. And immediately I stopped worrying about being fired. And then I could go back to focusing on what actually made sense to worry about or what actually was causing me stress. But it's not always that easy of flipping a light switch. I just happen to be a very like zeros and ones kind of person that I'm like, oh, that's the answer. Got it. That's how I'm supposed to feel. Let's work towards feeling that way, even if I don't immediately. So I would think about that, maybe a structured conversation with your boss, and we could talk about this extensively offline if you want to. But honestly, if someone like you came to me and said, hey, I was hoping we could have a meaningful discussion about something, and I don't want to have you be concerned about what I'm about to ask, but it's tough to not notice. There used to be two of me, and now there's just me. I'm holding it together as best I can, but I'm taking a lot home. And it's really wearing me out. What are the chances that we may be bringing somebody back in? Are we looking for somebody? Can we look for somebody? Is there somebody we could borrow some resources from? Here's a few things that I know that someone else could do if we had that someone else either already here. Is there any chance that's on the radar at all? And then just shut up and let them speak. I say that a lot. Then just shut up because it's amazing. Pause creates response.
Yeah.
You know?
So don't talk to them about like, I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. Don't say anything like that. Okay. Yeah. I do know that they are looking for somebody to replace that person who quit. So that's something. It's just they take a really long time to hire people because they want to hire what they call, quote, A players, which is hilarious because they don't pay A player salaries. But they want to hire A players. So they take a really long time to interview. And during all of that, it's on me. But I guess I could still say, like, I am feeling this pressure and I just want you to be aware of it because, you know, my performance is very important to me. And I feel like this amount of responsibility is going to affect my performance because it is too much for one person, which is why you brought me on to help Gable, that was his name, in the first place. So yeah, that might be what I say. And maybe I'll just check in with him, like, how's it going? How's the hiring going? Who we got? Do we have somebody? So
that is actually a way better intro than the one I gave you, because if that version of you shows up, they're going to know exactly what you're saying without you saying it, because it's like, smile on my face, I love you, but. We have this joke in my household. We have a friend of mine. They'll say, I love you, but. And it's like, you need to put your shoes away when I ask you to. It's really, I love you, but. They're going to sense that just through that, the way that you said that. So like, practice that. But that was really authentic, and I think it'll come across strong, and it will just open up the conversation in a much easier way. I think for me, the way I am as a leader, nothing makes me happier than when somebody comes to me, something like that, and I don't want to be the manager that says, don't come to me with problems, come to me with your answers. But man, I love when they come to me with prospective solutions, because it's like, man, they really thought this through. And so if I'm you, I'm going to have a few things that I think like, hey, these are not things that only I can do. I want to keep all the stuff that only I can do until we have the next project manager or product manager that can help. But in the meantime, these 5, 6, 7 things I do every week take me 4 or 5 hours. If I could get that off my plate, it would be wonderful. Is there anyone up and coming that I'm not thinking of in the team that may be willing to take a couple of these things off? Here's a couple people on my team that I thought maybe could take 1 or 2 of these things. What do you think about that? And just see what they say.
Yeah, That's a great idea. I do have a business analyst on my team who is so business analysts are product manager adjacent. And so there might be some things that I can maybe just one on one with her and say, hey, I have a lot of this stuff on my plate. And she's actually has less work than she would like to do. And so I might be like, do you want to like branch out at all? Now, she works with a contractor that we hire. So we have a contract company of developers and business analysts and testers that we hire. But they are like really good workers. They're all from Eastern Europe and they just like get it done. And they love work. So
Hmm.
it's just who they are as people. And so she's dying for more work. And I might be able to help her like maybe upskill by saying, hey, would you mind helping with maybe this thing, this thing? I would have to think through what that is, but maybe I could do that because she's really good at like researching stuff and talking to people, and she'll find out how to do something on her own, and it's amazing. So yeah, maybe I can utilize her as a resource already without even asking permission because I already know that she wants more work. So thank you, because I did not even think about that until just now. Like, so that's great. Burnout solved. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah.
kidding.
Burnout stuff. Not to twist the knife, but on one of our previous episodes, we talked about this, that I used to keep a list in my phone, and it was my delegate and delete list. And so, like, every time I hated doing something or I realized someone else could do this, but who? I would just keep track of it. And then eventually I would find out who was going to take it and do it, because you can't be the bottleneck. I just got this weekly newsletter from Echelon Front. It's the company that Jocko Willink owns. He's the author of Extreme Ownership. They sent out a weekly newsletter and I love it. And they said in there, don't be the bottleneck. And so what you don't want to be is the bottleneck that, one, slows your company down, and two, the only one with all the answers, and three, you don't want to be that person that is taking it all on and carrying the whole weight of the world on your shoulders and you're the mercenary for everyone, right? Like, you're better off finding out how can I get these things to other people so that they can elevate and rise up, so that they can learn, so that they can grow, so that they can maybe replace me if I want to rise up, or if I want to go away, I have a great succession plan in place. Just don't be the bottleneck. So highly recommend a delegate or a delete list. And I would like put it in your phone now, and just this weekend when you're walking around, you're gonna think of something, just write it down right away or you'll forget. It's why I texted you today. Here's like 9 random ideas I have for your show that we could consider talking about, because if I don't write them down now, I'm never gonna remember them again. Do it now. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, so that was the dark side of burnout. I'm literally suffering it right now, but we've got some options. So, Mitch, I want to hear about your experiences with burnout and how you came through it. And don't tell me it's because of FI. Like, give me something else.
No,
No, you can't say. You can say that if you need to.
no, it's not because of FI. It's the interesting thing is, going back to our pre-recording, worn out versus burnout. I was worn out from time to time. I've worked for the same organization now for 17 years. I just switched entities and switched roles. But the first, call it 1 to 5 years, I was a territory manager. I had a book of business that I oversaw. It had its good days where I'm like, I can't believe they pay me for this. And I had awful days where I'm like, they don't pay me enough, or like, I can't believe this is what I'm doing today. And everywhere in between. Was it stressful at times? Yes. Did I have moments where I feared for my future? Yes. But it was never super sustainable. And I told you once that I thought about this app where like you should check in every day with a different emoji, and then at the end of the month you should look back and see how many smiley faces, how many neutral faces, and how many frown faces, and maybe how many of the red emojis with like the expletive letters did I put in there. And that might just give you context of like, wow, when I look back on the month, at the end of a given day, I might be feeling really stressed out right now. It just so happens I had 3 expletive red-faced emojis this week, but the rest of the month, I only had 1. It's really condensed and consolidated. Concentrated is the right word I was looking for. It's really concentrated to now. So that was my first phase of my career. Then I became a director, and a lot was dumped on me. Just like, oh, here, this is all your problem now. No training, no guidance, no nothing. And man, I got really worn out for about a 90-day period. But then I learned delegate, delete very quickly. And 90 days, 6 months later, I was like, okay, now I'm leading people instead of trying to do everything for the people. And I found this reprieve. So I kind of graduated from that. And then I got to the point where I was a VP and I was hiring directors, and I was trying to get them to understand how to think the way that I thought. That got me to where I was. And that was really stressful for a period. and then it went away. And so that was great. And then all of a sudden, it came and it stayed, and it stayed, and it stayed, and it never went away. Every day I was anxious about this. I was frustrated about that. I was madder for longer about stupid things that happened. Like, I was becoming kind of the character of like the crotchety old person that says, get off my lawn in all things with the business.
How long did it last?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it started in 2019, and I know this because I wrote an email to my in-laws and I told them, hey, just so you know, might seem crazy, but end of 2020, I'm out. I'm leaving the job that I'm at. I don't know where I'm going to land. I don't know what I'm going to earn, but I don't care. I have to get out, and here's why. And that was 2020. And as you know, I didn't end up quitting until 2024. So I originally was going to be out by end of 2020. Couldn't bail on my team. I couldn't do it to them in the middle of 2020 in our industry specifically. And then I became a part owner in 2021. So I got a new level of golden handcuffs. So I stayed around to build my equity, earn my equity, but it never went away. I realized that every day, this is what it was feeling like for me. Every day, my wife knew the full story. Mitch is unhappy. Mitch wants out. Mitch is staying because. And then I'd go to work and I'd put on the face and I'd pretend that I was all sold out on what we were doing, all the company cool, and I'm excited about everything we're doing, blah, 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 blah. But inside, I knew it was all BS. And that wears on you after a while. Faking it and faking it and faking it and not truly living out what you think. And by the way, I cared about these people. I believed in these people. I didn't want to lie to them or mislead them, but I didn't really have a choice, right? It built and it built and it built and it built and it built. And I went, in the past, when I felt like this, it went away. Now it's not going away. And that's where you've heard me say before on your show, and I said it on mine when I had my own episodes, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I have what everybody would want, but I don't feel right. What is this? And I couldn't figure it out. And that's when I hunted down the therapist and started to really navigate it and figure it out. So that's the beginning of the dark side. Anything you want to go with there before I talk about the light,
Yeah, I mean, I asked how long it was. I've heard this story quite a few times, but I would love it if when you talk about the light side, because we've heard this side of it, like really go deeper on like that stuff, because we've heard kind of the general story, but I want to know like some more, get down in there,
Yeah.
get down in there with us. Yeah.
So I'm not really great at description. So like getting deeper is a little tougher for me. I'm more about the process of what I did to get out. And so
I can help you.
Okay. So I had a lot of these general discussions, and therapists helped me understand like, well, does it feel like this or that? Or like we literally pulled up a feelings wheel on the computer screen. So I knew like mad. And then within the mad wedge, there were these different words. And then within those words, there were these words. And it helped refine and think like what I was actually feeling, going back to naming it. And realizing that collectively those things were adding up and making me feel the way that I was all the time, and it wasn't working. So then it was, well, what do you want to do about that? And I was like, well, I want to quit, but I'm not ready yet because. Okay, so you want to get to when? So we built a deadline, a goalpost of when I was going to be done, and said, let's work our way backwards. How can we make this as tolerable as possible between now and then? And that's where we worked on structure. One, like get enough sleep. Absolutely get enough sleep. Go to bed on time. 2, make sure you consistently are working out, which I was already doing anyways, but make sure you're consistently working out. 3, hit the meditation app every day. Literally every day, either because you realize you need it or because the alert pops up that says, hey, we haven't seen you yet today. Go do the breath work to kind of reset. 4 was I needed a separation between work day and home day, whether I was at my office or if I worked from home that day, because I did a combination of both. And so it was like this 10 or 15 minute gap. I'd come home, kid would be excited, say hi to him, high five him for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And I'd say, bud, I'll be back in 10 or 15 minutes. I'm going to go do my front patio chill, which must have been spring or summertime. In the wintertime, I'm going to go lay down upstairs. And I just go sit out up front or go sit in my room. I typically didn't play on my phone. I would just kind of lay there and think. Maybe do some intentional like box breathing, like 4 seconds in, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds out, hold 4 seconds, 4 seconds in, and really just worked it. I had that structure to my day to then, for whatever reason, I would get up from my zero gravity chair or get up from, I always laid on the floor in my guest room. Don't know why that was my spot. And I walked downstairs and I was ready to be dad. And that to me was the most important thing, was to be dad and to be husband, because they shouldn't have to suffer with me, right? They can have empathy for me, but they shouldn't have to suffer with me. And so I want to be able to show up and not then be mad at myself. Speaking of that vicious cycle you're talking about earlier, I don't want to be mad at myself for not being able to show up for them because of what was going on during my day, because of this burden that I chose to carry to get to the end of the golden handcuff phase. And so that stuff worked. Quite honestly, it just, that was a huge piece to it, a really big piece to it. Another big piece to it was learning to accept that I can't take on everyone else's burdens, problems, emotions, feelings, whatever. And the best description I was given of that is, imagine this person in your life at work who you're feeling for them. They have their feelings, they're frustrated, but they're making their own choice. They're working there, they could go do whatever they want, but they're choosing to do this. Imagine they're pink and you're blue, and you have a sphere around you, almost like a hamster wheel. And when you start to notice their emotions are blending pink and blue and making purple, just back off and go, no, 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 no. I'm blue and you're pink, and recognize I can't take that on, and just find a way to divide and separate, and just don't take it on, because you don't have the capacity to take on everyone's stuff. And so that made a really big difference in my work life.
So, would you describe yourself as somebody who is like, either, I kind of already know the answer to this, but I don't want to make an assumption, like a people pleaser, or like an empath, or something like that, where like your first reaction is to take on somebody else's burden? Would you say that's you?
100%. I'm a peacekeeper, a people pleaser. I want to support and help people. Sometimes it's the Minnesota nice in me, and other times it's I feel it's my responsibility, even though it may not be. And pieces of it could be my responsibility, and you have to be able to adjust that. So, person on my team, they're having stress and headaches about this client that's really difficult. I can coach them through how to handle that client, and I can suggest, maybe to your point, like, hey, just so you know, if this goes backwards and you lose them as a client, I'm not going to fire you for it. I will know you did everything you could do. Now, if all of a sudden I find something different out happened there, and it's going on elsewhere, then we're going to talk about that pattern. But if you're telling me it's not a pattern, dude, you're fine. Just go do your best with this client. This is all you can do. If you lose them, you lose them. And that weight off their shoulders usually is good. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I asked it because, like, I definitely think I'm a people pleaser, and I have not quite found a way to not take on. And I wouldn't say people pleasing is also kind of a misnomer. I think it's less that I'm a people pleaser and more that I want everybody around me to also just be happy. Like, I don't want them to suffer. And if there's anything I can do to relieve their suffering, I want to do it. And so I guess what I would like is if you could go deeper in how you really were able to do that. Like, I know you gave me this like process, but like, how did you shift that mentally? If it's like you kind of identified as this, it was part of your identity. Like, how do you get out of that? And if it's with your therapist, like maybe you guys talked about something specific. I don't know. I'd love to hear that.
Some of it, going back to like one of your questions you ask of like, can you tell me your earliest money memory? And then often that informs either what we're doing today with money, or we're doing the opposite of it with money. I don't know how to explain it, but when I was a kid and I grew up on welfare and going to the food shelf and all that, all I knew, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but all I knew, and I voiced this to people throughout my life, was I don't ever want to live the way that I grew up. I don't ever want to live that way. So how can I run the other direction and make sure I'm never there? So that seems to be just kind of who I am somehow at my core. Is I go, I know what I don't want to be, so let me sprint towards what I do want to be. And so I think it kind of plays out here that it's like, once I know something, this is maybe just how I'm wired. Once I know something, I can't ignore it. And so I'm good at reverse engineering. So like ChooseFI will say, like, when you pick up the stick, you pick up both ends of the stick. I haven't heard him say that for a long time, actually. And it's like, well, on the other end is the goal. Who would I have to become to get there? What would that look like to get there? And then I map out and I think through those steps. And if I don't know the answers, going back to one of my people, I would just ask them, like, hey, this is where I want to be. What might that look like? How could we get there? What would have to go right to get there? And through that dialogue, you come away with, okay, these are the steps we're going to take. And then whatever happens, happens. Again, I hope that actually answered what you asked. I may have went off a
No,
little
it
bit.
did. No, it did. And it's so funny because it's like, here's where therapy is very important because part of me is like, well, I want to be the kind of person who thinks of others and wants to relieve their burden. But yet it is becoming too much for me. And so, and there's almost this like idea of like, if I don't do this, then I'm not a good person. And now I don't think that of other people. It's just about me,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's like that weird blocker where like if I don't try to help somebody else, like I'm not a good person. And it's not true. It's just a belief I have, right? And it's like, okay, so how do I reframe that? Because that's a doozy right there, right? If you literally think like, oh, you're a bad person if you don't do this thing that's causing you like severe burnout, like it's yeah, you see how it's like maybe I do need to just talk to my therapist about my therapist and I are talking about something completely different right now though, so I'm not gonna just put that on her. But yeah, I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, that's what she's there for. I think it's Mary. That's what Mary's there for, is to deal with whatever.
Actually, it's a different one.
Oh,
I have a different therapist
okay.
now. Yeah, I changed Dr. Schutte. She's with my fertility clinic, and we're talking about like very specific like fertility stuff. So that's why it's like
Yeah.
I could tell her this,
Yeah.
but like it's outside of like we have a very specific goal that we're doing right now. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things where if you accept this answer, then it's up to you to do something about it. Okay, so if you recognize, you said something like this blocker or whatever, if you recognize, okay, by taking that on, or by taking on that level of emotion or belief on behalf of this person on my team or my life or whatever, it is to my detriment. I don't like how it makes me feel. Then name it, right? Name it. You caught it. Okay, I'm aware. Recognize it. Accept that it doesn't make you a bad person to not take that on for somebody. And then take out that other B word and put the boundary up. And if you have to express it to somebody, feel free to just say, hey, so and so, struggle that we're going through this. Let's talk about how we could get there. I want to make sure that you have the tools you need to move forward, because I don't want to go home worrying about you every day or wondering how you're taking it every day. I want to go home and be home just like you do, right? And if you're a good leader to your people, they want you to be happy at home too. And they might be like, oh my gosh, Megan, this bothers me like a 3 out of 10. And you're like, oh, I've been taking it on like a 12 out of 10. Whoops. So communication can break down a lot of walls,
Yeah, that's good.
provide a
Yeah,
lot of clarity.
that's really good. I
So
love that.
yeah, so that's what I did. I mean, that's what I did is I recognized there was a problem. Eventually I said, this ain't working. Went and talked to the therapist, got the ball rolling, took a while. I think I've shared on here before, I was consistently in therapy pretty much every week, sometimes every other, for about 18 to 22 months, something like that. Got me across the finish line. And then I will give you the FI answer. In fairness, it actually has less to do, this is going to sound stupid. I'm sure people are going to be like, yo, okay. It has less to do with the money. But I would be completely ignorant to say that having the number in the bank account does not actually impact my everyday life. That would be wild. But it was less about the money, and it was more about getting the words out to the people who thought that I was somebody that I actually wasn't. It felt really good to say it out loud, get it off the shoulders. Now they all know. And what's interesting is the ones that really cared, the ones that truly were part of my clan, they're still part of my clan today. And some of them that I thought were, they're not. And it's really interesting because we were connected through work every day. And we still could be connected through work very regularly, but they never show up. They've actually given me the cold shoulder. And now I know exactly where things really were with those people. And I've done my part to try. I've tried to outreach. I've tried to do this, try to do that. Is what it is. But by getting those words out of my mouth and actually moving on, it was great. Then I had the great reset, as I shared. 3 months on the road was wonderful with my family. And then I came back. I'm working harder than I've ever worked in a long time, but I'm having more fun. I have my stressful days. If I put emojis on there, I bet you'd have 3 expletive emojis a month. I probably have 3 to 4 like eye roll emojis a month where I'm like, come on. And the rest are probably neutral or happy, right? And so overall, it's been pretty good. But that's kind of the journey. I don't want to say quitting's the right answer, but I wrote a quote down that it's a paraphrased quote from somebody who used to coach me. And it can be hard advice to hear because it might force somebody to go, you know what, maybe I do need to consider changing what I'm doing. And that's what happened to me is we can only operate in a role that's outside of who we are at our core for so long. Eventually we're going to break. We're going to bend for a while and eventually we're going to break. And for me, I reached a point where I realized I had broken and it was time to advance and move on. And that's okay. I'm still a great guy. I'm still very good at what I do. I was good at what I did. It just wasn't good for me to continue doing what I did. So those are my kind of big thoughts and remarks.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that quote actually made me a little bit like teary-eyed. I'm getting teary-eyed today. Not like I'm not like fully crying, but like I was like, ooh, yeah. And I have had a thought that like once we have a child and we get 12 weeks of fully paid parental leave, which is really nice. Once that's over, I told Chris, I was like, there might be in me something that says I do not want to go back to this job. And I was like, and I want to set that expectation now so that we can prepare for that and like whatever we need to do. And I actually thought about talking to David Robinson, who I'll put his episode in the show notes, but he is a money coach and he comes to a lot of the Camp Fi's. He's the Mr. Quit Your Job guy. So he'll tell you to quit your job if you're at FI and you don't think you're at FI. And he's like, no, you're at FI, quit your job. So I kind of want to talk to him about this because I want to understand, like, how can I get to a point where I can quit my job? Yeah, I'm not at like FI yet, but maybe I can quit for a little while, explore some other things, and then go back to work, like when the kid is like in a cheaper daycare. Because I don't know if you guys know, but newborn daycare, toddler daycare, like it's different prices. So newborn daycare is very expensive. So that's what I would like to do. And it's not that I just know that the week before I have to go back to work, I will probably be dreading it. And I want to say for anybody who's listening at my job, because there's some people from my work who listen to this, like it is not you. It is not the people I work with. Like the people I work with are actually fantastic. It's the working from home. There's no boundaries. I'm literally at my desk right now in our living room because our house is so small. Like there's no separation for me. Like you have a whole basement. Like we don't have that. I have a crawl space. I guess I could go down there with the spiders and like work down there. But no, just kidding. So there's really no separation. And I do put this like focus time on my phone where after 5 p.m. my Slack messages turn off. So I can't see them anymore. But you know, I'm still kind of thinking about it. So it's one of those things that the kind of work I'm doing, I'm working harder than I ever have, kind of like you said. But the mission of the company, it's fine, but it's not something that really lights me up. You know, I very much like to give back, as you saw. I'm wearing a shirt right now that says K4 Connected. I know you guys can't see it. This company was the first tech company I ever worked for, and we helped seniors in senior living communities create better connections, live longer, be happier with our solutions. And it was like so fulfilling because we could see the impact we were having on people's lives. And it was the kind of impact that like literally made people happier and healthier. The kind of impact I have at this job is like, yeah, we're kind of making their jobs easier and making them more money. That's not exactly like gonna fill me up, right? That's just not who I am. So like, it's not you guys. It's just I need a little bit more depth to my work. So anyway, that was a big long ramble. Sorry.
That's all right. I would say definitely talk to Mr. Quit Your Job. And I would also say maybe go popcorn a few of Jillian Johnsrud's, oh gosh, what is her podcast called?
I just interviewed her.
Oh, really?
Because I was going to bring you on, but you're like, oh, I'm traveling.
Oh, that's right.
She is so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are definitely friends now. She's hilarious. I love her. She was funny like during the whole episode and on either side, like when we weren't recording. So anyway, yes, I read her whole book in preparation for that. So that's also what's kind of sparking me to be like, oh, I could take this as like a sabbatical type of thing. But I think it's going to be a little longer than that and more like a, hey, let me try out this stay-at-home mom thing, you know, and have Chris, because Chris actually enjoys his job more than me. He's not in love with it, but he definitely enjoys it. And he likes science and working in a lab and stuff. And also his job is a little less stressful. Like this whole week, he really didn't have that much to do for instance. So anyway, but yes, I
Yeah,
didn't mean to cut you off.
that's
I just
okay.
wanted to say, like, Jillian Johnson, yeah, she's my bud now.
Well, one of the things she opened my eyes to in all of her work, and I've followed her for a long time. I emailed her this, like, listening to her podcast, she talked a lot about therapy. I was like, oh, maybe that's what I need. Like, she actually helped guide me towards, like, it might be normal to go talk to a therapist, right? And
Yeah.
so
And just real quick, her podcast is Retire Often.
retire often. I can never remember what it's called. Sorry, Jillian, if you hear this. I think it's really interesting. If you were to take, let's say you did the math, you can live on Chris's income plus you stack some cash between now and then, or you draw back some of your 401k contributions to just the match or whatever, and you stack the cash up. What's interesting is if you threw into a compounding calculator what you'd be putting in over the next 2 or 3 years, what that number turns into at your what would have been your FI timeline, how far does it push you back? Because the contributions, they certainly matter, don't get me wrong, but it may not be as bad as you think. And you're like, okay, so I can have 2 years now with my child, hit the big reset button, and I have to work 2 hours longer on the other end. That seems like a fair trade to me when my kid is 10 and is less likely to want to be around me as much, right? Like, that's the simple answer. But then when you go back to work, what do you find? And so then the answer is, well, what if you didn't just completely shut off the spigot? What if you found a way to be a consultant? What if you helped product managers better work in their organization the way that you do for a high dollar rate per hour, but in fewer hours to help supplement some of that loss? Like, there may be a way to have best of both worlds. And map it out, consider it, think about it. I don't know what the answer is, but
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't want to be a product manager again after that, unless I did it for like somewhere that is, like I said, super fulfilling, meaning the mission is really fulfilling. Then I would really want to do that. And so it might be that I just look for that job during that whole time and just do it very slowly, and maybe even look at part-time. And I actually thought about this, and I do want to get to one other topic, but I want to say this one last thing on this topic. I did think about, I am going for a promotion at the end of the year. And if I get it, I will obviously get more money. But I thought about asking instead for 1 day off a week instead. Like, can I have 1 day off? Here's my least busy day. No meetings on this day. So it's a Wednesday, which I know is a weird day, but it is a Wednesday. Can I have this day off instead? And I did the math on like what the salary, it'd be like pretty much the same for what the raise would be. And I'd be like, instead of taking the raise, take this. And maybe that'll help. Or maybe it'll make it way worse, because then I like only can do my work in 4 days. So, but if I delete and delegate, then maybe it will help. So that's a thought. Or I could just take that raise and shovel it into the cash, and then that be, what I use as my exit. But yeah,
yeah.
that was a thought I had.
Yeah. There's a ton there. You have time between now and that raise period to work on this delegate delete list, right? You can absolutely do that to be better prepared and be better equipped. You also have time to figure out how to shape that conversation, because you may be in a world where you can have both. You may be able to say, that's great, I would also like to consider a whole day off on Wednesdays or whatever, and here's how I'm going to do it. And they may laugh at you and go, okay, fine, I thought you might laugh at that. What if we redistributed this to a couple of other people, made it work? They might also laugh at that. And then you go, okay, what if I just trade the raise for the day off? And that happens over the course of several discussions. It's not one conversation, but just something to consider. I actually regret in my most recent negotiation not asking for more time off, but then I ended up just taking it in a different way. And that was the form of my trip this last month. So I got what I wanted anyway. It just wasn't official on paper, and it actually made me feel a little guilty during it, but not that guilty. I still did it and enjoyed it. So
Yeah, not that guilty.
I can't wait.
Okay.
What's the other subject? I can't wait to find out. I don't remember.
Oh, yeah. Well, so you said you have it in your section of the doc that we are looking at. Look for other options that might light you up. If you're feeling burnout, I know adding more is sometimes harder, but it's adding more that makes the burnout less. So for instance, the strength training that I just went to, that was the 6th day this week that I worked out. So, and like, that sounds like a lot, right? But it really does make me feel better. And one thing that I actually am adding in, I'm starting to take a painting class once a week for 7 weeks. And I'm super excited about that. And I mean, I have not been an artist for over a decade. Not even kidding. And I used to be like, that was actually what I wanted to be when I was a little kid. It was astronaut first, and then I watched Apollo 13 and was like, never mind. And and then it was artist. So, and I have been drawing like my whole life. Like some of the art that's in my house is from me. And so I was like, I'm going to add that in. And it was $200 for 7 weeks. And of course I have to buy the supplies, but that was it. And then it's one night a week, and it's not on a night where I work out or anything. It's on one of my rest nights. It's perfect. And it's not far, and it's going to be something that fills me back up again, even though it's something that I added. So yeah, that's the subject I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I love it. That was my thing, and I forgot. So yay. So what I was getting at with this when I made the notes was, while you're doing what you're doing, if you think about vacation, there's like studies that I've done that show that people are more excited about the hunt for the vacation than they are when they're actually on vacation. Like they enjoy the hunt and the purchase more than the actual experience.
And even remembering the vacation, it's like better than being on the vacation.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. So I thought, while you're still working in this capacity today, maybe you also dedicate 20 minutes a week to just be like, I'm going to be on LinkedIn. I'm going to look for organizations that light me up, and I'm going to ask somebody within that organization if they would be interested in talking to me about a possible future opportunity, or maybe just ask them, is there anything I could help you with? Could I provide any value to you? Is there anything that, like a mentorship or a coaching, is there someone in your organization that I might want to get introduced to potentially come and work with you someday? And just by forging those relationships, there's this book I read once called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, and I think that's where some of this came from, is you're actively looking for your next place now. You're trying to find that KB24 Connect, whatever your shirt says, I can't remember. You're trying to find that place in today's world so that when they're ready for you, you can show up, right? So go find your K4 Connect. Go find it.
Yeah. And I think if I'm given time to do that, I think it's going to be a lot easier, because adding that in right now might be harder for me, because interviewing as a product manager, it feels like a second job. It really does. So that's why I'm like, maybe during, I don't want to say this because I was going to say during my maternity leave. I mean, I feel like I'm going to be figuring out how to keep this little bundle of cells alive. So maybe I won't have time. So you also mentioned something, friend's story from AGM to COO. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that's kind of what this is. So you said interview. I was going to offer a point of correction. I don't think you'll have to interview. I think if you do this right, you will build the right relationships as someone who can be relied upon, because a lot of times the resume is just kind of like, okay, yep, you can do the job. Great. But who is the person? Can I count on them? Can I rely on them? Do they show up? Do they offer a wide breadth of these soft skills that we want to know in somebody? And then you just get given a job when the opportunity comes. Like, it's not even interviewed for. So just a small point of clarification. But yes, I have a friend who I won't name, but she was much like me. Right place, right time, grew up in an organization and became a big shot in that organization. She had a really awesome career, making a ton of money. And she's going, how am I ever going to make this again? And I like these parts of my job, but I'm never going to get to only do those. She had the conversations and it was never going to happen. So she started looking and working her network and finding different opportunities. And she did interview along the way, yes. But I believe the job that she got required almost no interviewing, because somebody who she'd been networking with and talking to about possible opportunities said, she's not the right fit for this thing that we wanted, and here's why, but boy, I think she could do that for you. And now she's there. So she went from being an assistant general manager, I'm not even going to name the industry just because, but in a niche, cool space, completely changed the type of industry. But the industry she moved to serves the industry that she used to work in. So it was a very clear and simple, that was all just through coffee outreaches, network connections, and all of that was intentional. It was a LinkedIn message. Hey, I like your company. You look like you've got a lot of history. You're somebody that I would look up to. Would you be interested in meeting at some point? 1 or 2 out of 10 people might say yes. And you get a fun little engaging coffee conversation. Don't think about it like an interview. And then what it can become is just a job offer somewhere down the road. Maybe from them, and maybe from another person. So that's where that was coming from.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to think if I've done that before. And so I'll leave us with one last little anecdote and then we can go forth and do Saturday. But the gallery that I worked at in New York City before I changed careers, the way that I got that job, it wasn't quite like this, but it was, I knew I wanted to work with medieval artwork. And I knew that working in museums would be hard because there's only so many museums that have medieval artwork in New York City. There really aren't. Museums in New York are really more modern, contemporary. Like there's a lot more of that, or more like American art or things like that. Medieval is really only at the Met and a few other places. So I was looking at galleries and I saw this gallery and I just emailed their info at bloomkagallery.com. Like that was Bloomka Gallery is what it is. And I just said, hey, I have a master's in art history. I specialized in medieval artwork and I'd love the opportunity to like come in and see the gallery and like if I could volunteer or intern, or I am looking for a real job, but if you don't have any openings, I'd love to just be involved. Now, the way that it worked out for me is the woman who was the gallery director at the time was on her way out and was looking for somebody. And she was like, I'm actually just put in my notice like 2 days ago. It was so crazy. I was like, what? And yeah, I gave them my resume and got the job. And I've talked about that a little bit about how I should have negotiated a little better there, but that was like my first real big girl job at 28, which is hilarious. But yeah, shoot your shot is that kind of like sports ball metaphor or whatever, because you never know. Like if you don't do it, it's always a no. And if you do it, it could be a yes. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would 100% be considering, because you're probably right. You don't have time to go through the interview grind. And there is something attractive about individuals that are just reaching out to talk. You're not asking for anything other than a cup of coffee and a conversation. And they might be like, well, we have this job available on the website. Why didn't you just apply for it? And it's almost like they want what they can't have, because you're not saying I'm available and I'm ready to jump. You're saying I'd like to talk. A company like yours is somewhere I may want to migrate to someday. I like your mission. I'm caught up on this. I think this thing that you do is great. Just that, right? Like it's really interesting stuff. I have a standing offer out there to go, and it's kind of a silly offer because it's almost like having an offer to be a real estate agent. You're like, yeah, okay, go start your own business and work really hard. I have a standing offer forever to go and sell businesses. Like find people that want to sell their business and they don't know how to sell it. Let me be the salesperson. And I have a standing offer that I just kind of networked my way into over a period of time to where they called me and said, come in for this informal interview. We'd love for you to do this if it's your next thing. And I told them no. And they said, doors always open. Come kick it down when you're ready. And that was just through a handful of discussions here and there over time. So you'd be shocked.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope we helped you figure out your burnout. If not, I'm sorry. But yeah, this is just me and Mitch talking. You're the fly on the wall here. So, but yeah, thanks for listening. And Mitch, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Everyday 5 podcast. If you're loving this show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share the show with your friends and family. You can also find us on YouTube now. Some of the videos actually have our faces. Number 2, please leave a review. I am always looking for ways to improve the show. Number 3, check out my website, everyday-fi.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 4, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story and connecting with other community members, you can find a submission form at everyday-fi.com/podcast. And lastly, number 5, join my Patreon membership for only $5 a month at patreon.com/everyday5podcast. This is a one-woman show, so every little bit of support really helps. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.